The golden rock worm king, which had lost its appetite for a long time, suddenly opened its mouth wide and swallowed the black-feathered beast king's body in its entirety, making the rest of the group dumbstruck. Everyone could tell that the body indeed belonged to the sacred blood black-feathered beast king. Originally, they thought Han Sen would save the body for himself. Who knows that Han Sen had fed the whole body to his pet? It was simply impressive. After swallowing the black-feathered beast king, the golden rock worm king stayed still and started to squirm. It really is about to transform. Han Sen became overjoyed and took the worm king back, letting it finish the transformation in his mind. I hope it could evolve at the same time. If I could gain a super beast and equip it with the blood the snail armor, I can basically kill any super creature. Han Sen prayed secretly to all the gods in the world, wishing that the golden rock worm king could evolve in the same way Meowth did. Sen, if you have maxed out on super Geno points, you can sell me this sacred blood meat. It is such a waste feeding it to your pet, said Yuan. It is too late. Maybe next time, Han Sen said with a smile. He did not think feeding his pet was a waste at all. With the super pet armor, a strong pet would be a tremendous help to Han's senator. In addition, Han Sen was also expecting the golden rock worm king to evolve. Although the chance was slim, one could still hope. I have some private business and will not keep going. We will have to part our ways here. Han Sen planned to go to the underground cave where he used to hunt ghost butterflies. Maybe he could gain a few beast soul boomerangs. The sacred blood ghost butterfly boomerangs were quite useful. Although the cursed wolf dagger was good, it was a short weapon after all. And when he used sacred blood bow and arrow, Han Sen needed time to prepare. The damage the boomerang cost and its flexibility meant a lot to Han Sen. Since he was already close to the cave, Han Sen planned to have a look. After parting way with Qing and Yuan, Han Sen went to check out the underground cave. Again, he saw the ghost butterflies with blue flames flickering on their wings. Han Sen summoned Meowth, put super pet armor on it, and ordered it to rush to the butterflies. Groups of butterflies were awakened and became fireballs rushing toward Meowth. Blue flames hit Meowth as if they had hit a glass shield and bounced off immediately. The blue flames were flying across like fireworks, but Meowth was not hurt at all. Hearing the voice sounding in his mind, telling him ghost butterflies killed and beast souls gained, Han Sen became overjoyed. Super pet armor was indeed outstanding. Boom! Sacred blood ghost butterfly killed. Beast soul of sacred blood ghost butterfly gained. Meat inedible. Suddenly, Han Sen heard the voice, which made him jump with joy. Checking Meowth, Han Sen found his pet was still going forward as if nothing had happened. Super pet armor is simply wonderful. Han Sen had never visited the underground cave before because the sacred blood ghost butterflies were still threatening to him. He could not even defend himself with his sacred blood armor on. This time, Han Sen was planning to check out the performance of the super pet armor, which did not disappoint him. The explosion of the sacred blood ghost butterfly did not even leave any mark on the pet armor, let alone hurt Meowth. The pet armor was basically invincible. Han Sen did not bring the rest of the group over, not because he did not want others to learn about the cave, but because he did not want them to see the super pet armor or Meowth. Watching Meowth having fun hunting the butterflies like a kitty cat, Han Sen followed his pet delightedly, enjoying the gains without lifting a finger. All sorts of ghost butterflies were smashed against the super pet armor, contributing beast souls to Han Sen. Meowth jumped up and down in the cave and cleared all the ghost butterflies. Han Sen summoned his newly gained sacred blood black-feathered beast wings and followed Meowth in the air. A pair of black wings spread on Han Sen's back, making him look like a dark angel. The speed of this pair of wings were the same as the purple-feathered dragon's. Last time Han Sen did not make it to the end of the cave, so he wanted to see for himself what was awaiting if he went further. Sacred blood ghost butterfly killed. Beast soul gained. Meat inedible. Watching the ghost butterflies became more and more scarce, Han Sen heard another voice telling him about another sacred blood ghost butterfly beast soul. Another sacred blood one. Han Sen saw another blue ghost butterfly in his mind, flapping its wings and looking gorgeous. When Han Sen went deeper into the cave, there were fewer ghost butterflies left. Han Sen checked his mind and found that he already had 200 to 300 ghost butterfly beast souls, among which about 2 dozens were mutant and 2 were sacred blood. Such a great place. However, I wonder when there will be ghost butterflies again after I wiped them out just now. Han Sen glanced at the empty underground cave and Meowth, which seemed to be lamenting the fact that it could not play anymore. Deeper inside the cave, darkness prevented Han Sen to see the end. The cave was extremely deep, and water kept flowing down. Although there were some sideways, the main cave never changed its direction, but went straight down to the center of the earth. Han Sen hesitated slightly and decided to let Meowth scout. According to Han Sen's previous experience, there are generally very strong creatures in deep caves like this one. Since the direction was pretty straightforward, he was not worried about getting lost and was in no hurry to leave. After more than half a day, Han Sen suddenly entered a large space. Water started to go down straight and became a waterfall. Standing at the end of the narrow path, Han Sen could not see where the water was falling using the light of the torch. It was deep and dark and silent. Han Sen could not even tell how deep the larger cave was, given that he could not even hear the sound of the waterfall. Han Sen looked up and his pupils suddenly contracted as his glance swept across. Using the torch, Han Sen saw someone sitting opposite him. "Who is there?" Han Sen yelled at the person, but there was no response. Looking around vigilantly, Han Sen felt something must be wrong. He was about 100 feet from the person, so he should not be able to see the person with the dim light of the torch. The reason Han Sen was able to see the person was that the person was glowing. In the beginning, Han Sen thought it was the person's clothes that were glowing. Maybe it was made of some fluorescent materials. However, very soon, Han Sen made sure that it was not the clothes, but the person himself was glowing. After checking carefully, Han Sen was surprised to find that it was not a living person. Although it looked exactly like a living person, it was obvious that its exposed face and hands were dried up. It was impossible for a living person to have this kind of feature. Different from a dead person or a skeleton, the man had his skin and muscles intact, although water had left his body cells. Because his skin was glowing, he did not even look like a mummy. "Are you alive or dead? If you're alive, say something." Han Sen was not quite sure whether the person had died. Han Sen became curious about this dead man, wondering why he would die there in such a strange way. Checking left and right and making sure nothing was abnormal, Han Sen flapped his wings and approached the person with caution. While approaching the dead man, Han Sen checked him out. The clothing on the man was very strange, much different from modern clothing. The material and style of his clothing were like the ancient clothes human wore before they ever left planet Earth. However, Han Sen decided that this idea was ridiculous. At that time, men did not even have the ability to survive in the universe, let alone teleport to God's sanctuary. Maybe he was just a guy who liked to dress weirdly. Han Sen thought to himself. When he was about 20 feet from the dead man, Han Sen did not continue to approach him. Moving left and right, Han Sen observed the dead man from all angles. A dead man that looked like he was still alive. That was the only way Han Sen could describe this person. He looked like a breathing person except for the fact that his body had dried up. However, he looked more like a statue made of jade or something, glowing with fluorescent light. Suddenly, Han Sen's eyes were caught by something next to the left hand of the dead man, which looked like it belonged to the man. The dead man was sitting with his legs crossed and arms hanging naturally on a platform about 6 feet long extruding from the stone wall. Beside his left hand, there was something that looked like a scroll. At this point, Han Sen was certain that it was a dead man. Since there was no danger he could sense, Han Sen hesitated, landed on the platform, and picked up the scroll. The scroll looked like it was made of silk, but the touch of it felt more like leather. Han Sen looked at the dead man before he opened the scroll. There were lots of miniature characters written on the scroll, at least 30,000 characters on the 3-foot-long scroll. The majority of the characters were embroidered using some special threads, while the last portion was written by a certain kind of liquid. The handwriting of the 2 parts was also quite different. Han Sen believed they were from 2 different hands. Han Sen tried to read the scroll but found that the characters he knew were rather limited. Some of the characters he was familiar with, but not sure if they meant what he thought they meant. Is it some ancient language from the early days of mankind?
Han Sen pondererade.
The universal language of the Alliance came from a certain country in the early days of mankind. However, the language had already gone through a lot of adjustments. Most people no longer recognize the older languages. However, in artifacts like calligraphy, older languages could still be found, which seemed to be similar to the characters in the scroll. Quite a weird dead guy. Han Sen checked the dead man out again. The dead man was about 30 or 40 years old. Although he looked dried up, Han Sen was still able to tell that he must have looked handsome when he was alive. Brother, since you have died already, you have no use of your belongings. I'm sure you'd rather do some charity work for a poor living guy like me. Han Sen reached his hand toward the dead man. He was no stranger to death and did not mind doing something like this. However, the moment Han Sen touched the clothes of the dead man, the material immediately turned into dust. Pulled by Han Sen, the clothes were immediately blown away. All of a sudden, nothing was left on the dead man's body. How come the clothes are so old? Han Sen paused and looked to the person again. The dead man was naked right now, but his whole body looked sacred and solemn. Han Sen looked the body all over and found nothing but the scroll. I wonder who he was. There is no chance he came from the ancient times, right? Even Han Sen felt amused by his own thought. There were very limited technologies in the ancient times. It was simply impossible for someone to teleport at that time. In addition to the dead body, there was nothing else. Han Sen then summoned the cursed wolf dagger and cut a hole in the stone wall. He placed the body into the hole, filled the hole with rocks, and said, "Since I damaged your clothes, I will give you a place to rest. As for the scroll, you would not need it as a dead man. I will take it back to have a look. Maybe I can find out who you are and ask your family to bury you properly." Han Sen then looked around. He did not have anywhere else to go other than the deeper cave. Han Sen looked into the depths of the cave and tried to fly down. After flying for a few miles, he still could not see the bottom of the cave. Watching the darkness that looked like an entrance to the hell, Han Sen felt scared. He hesitated and felt like it was unnecessary to take such risks. Han Sen flew up and went back to Devil Desert from the path where he came from. Han Sen spent 2 more days in Devil Desert and found no more sacred blood creatures. He went to the area where the sacred blood fox king used to be and failed to find it. To Han Sen's surprise, Golden Rock Worm King had accomplished its transformation. Super Golden Rock Worm King. Pet, evolved and transformed. Seeing the Golden Rock Worm King that had finished its transformation, Han Sen felt dumbstruck. Its gigantic body had become much smaller after transformation. It used to be the size of a bus, but had shrunk to the size of a car. However, the golden shell had become thicker. In addition, it had grown 4 pairs of sharp claws that looked like the sickle of the death. Behind its body, it had also developed a tail like a scorpion's. Behind its back, 2 pairs of golden wings buzzed like a bee's so fast that they were almost invisible. Ferocious was the word Han Sen was thinking when seeing the Super Golden Rock Worm King. The worm was completely different from what it used to be. Evolution.
Super pet.
Han Sen had become so overjoyed that he did not know how to organize his words. Although he had hope, the chance was so low that he felt surreal when his hope actually became true. Han Sen summoned the Golden Rock Worm King and couldn't resist laughing when seeing how good the pet looked. Super Pet plus Super Pet Armor. I don't know who can stop my maxing out on Super Geno points. Han Sen felt quite proud. He cannot wait to find more super creatures to kill. However, it remained an issue where to find a super creature. Unlike Starry Group, which had a huge intelligence network and large amounts of capital and manpower, or Ares Marshall Hall, which had talents in all shelters, Han Sen was on his own. To find a super creature, the only way was to piece together fragmented information from the news on the Skynet and the platform of the Special Squad. With the Super Rock Worm King, Han Sen did not want to find a sacred blood creature anymore. Instead, he immediately went to Steel Armor Shelter, wanting to find a super creature so that he could max out on Super Geno points as soon as possible. However, before Han Sen reached Steel Armor Shelter, he felt something was wrong. Many people were fleeing from the shelter with a terrorized look. Some people were even injured. Han Sen would not feel much if it were just a few people. However, More and more people started to flood out of the shelter, which was abnormal. "Brother, what's happening?" Han Sen pulled someone passing by and asked. "Creature." A creature came to the shelter. The person said, frightened.
Han Sen paus.
It was common for a creature to make its way into a shelter in second or third God's sanctuary. However, in first God's sanctuary, creatures would not even approach a shelter. Han Sen had never heard of any incidents in which a creature attacked humans in the shelter. In fact, he thought it had never happened before. How many creatures were in the shelter?
Han Sen asket hastilu.
1. The guy replied. 1? What creature? Maybe it's a super creature? Han Sen's brows were knitted. Steel armor shelter was not a weak shelter. There were a lot of strong men in the shelter. One creature frightened so many people out of the shelter, which proved the strength of the creature. A lion. A giant golden lion. The guy stuttered. The words made Han Sen's heart sink. Golden lion? Could it be that baby golden growler?
Han Sen valked faster toward steel armor shelter.
The closer he got to the shelter, the more people running away from the shelter he saw. Many people were injured and crying. Han Sen also saw many people pulling dead bodies out of the shelter. It looked like there were quite a lot of casualties, since no one could have imagined a creature making its way into the shelter. There were so many weaker people in the shelter. If it was really a super creature, Han Sen did not think they could even be able to run away. Han Sen gritted his teeth and went against the crowds, entering steel armor shelter. He saw a giant golden lion raging among the buildings of the shelter from afar. Although many strong men were attacking it, none could stop it. The golden lion was still killing like crazy. Golden growler. You must be the little golden growler. Watching the grown golden growler, which was as tall as a 2-story building, Han Sen felt surprised and pleased. He was pleased that he got to meet the baby golden growler again, as he now had the ability to kill it. This golden growler was simply a godsend. However, Han Sen was surprised how big the golden growler had grown. When it moved its paw, it could easily tear down a room. Each room was a private space equipped with a teleport device. Everyone was naturally assigned his or her room when coming to First God's Sanctuary. However, in Higher God's Sanctuary, humans were completely on their own. They would need to build or fight for their own shelter, and sometimes they would even be attacked by creatures in the shelter. Watching the golden growler crushing buildings and rooms, Han Sen's heart raced, because the golden growler was about to reach his room in the shelter. Han Sen did not care about anything else, but the archer crow he was feeding, which should not be revealed in public no matter what. The golden growler stamped on the buildings and people who had not made their way out yet, looking like a vicious dragon. Golden growler approached his own room. Without any hesitation, Han Sen summoned the Super Golden Rock Worm King in super pet armor. He shapeshifted into the Fairy Queen and summoned the Cursed Wolf Dagger. Standing on the back of the Golden Rock Worm King, Han Sen rushed toward the Golden Growler. With its 4 wings buzzing, the Golden Rock Worm King looked like an alien creature, wielding its 4 sharp claws at the Golden Growler. Han Sen was standing on the back of the Worm King, his blonde hair dancing in the wind and his ruby crown shining under the sun. With the Cursed Wolf Dagger in his hand, Han Sen fixed his gaze upon the Golden Growler. Broken buildings and damaged bodies were everywhere. People were crying and shouting. Those who could fight in steel armor shelter, no matter which gang they were from, had all joined the fight. No one wanted to see steel armor shelter ruined. If they lost their own room, which was their safe space, everything would become difficult for them in God's sanctuary. Especially for the large gangs and merchants, losing their rooms meant the loss of a safe warehouse or transition space, which would cost tremendous damages. Many precious items were stored in the rooms. If ruined by the Golden Growler, many people would become poor overnight. Numerous arrows flew to the Golden Growler like a shower, which did absolutely no harm to the creature. In the eyes of the Golden Growler, the attack was like drizzle. Even Littlefinger, who was already a first-class fighter in First God's Sanctuary, could not even hurt the Golden Growler with a sacred blood weapon. When hundreds of different weapons cut on the Golden Growler, the creature could simply shake its body to get rid of both the weapons and their owners. The Golden Growler was like a monster from hell, crushing and smashing everything in its way. Whoever happened to be standing under its paw would become a pool of mud immediately. Blood flowed and became a river. It looks like apocalypse in steel armor shelter. With the screaming and howling, one would have goosebumps even it was noon. Retreat. Retreat. Littlefinger ordered everyone to retreat. It was not because he did not want to buy more time for the merchants and ladies who did not have much ability to fight, but because he could no longer keep fighting. In a short amount of time, the Fist Gang had already lost a few core members. The situation of Steel Armor Gang and the Disciples was not any better than the Fist Gang. Plus, Steel Armor Gang had suffered the most loss. Many members of the Steel Armor Gang were military school students. The education they received gave them more courage to sacrifice themselves. However, no matter how brave they were, it was simply useless in front of Golden Growler. The blood made people's hearts tremble, and deaths brought despair. At this point, even if the Steel Armor Gang wanted to retreat, it would be too late, given how fast the Golden Growler was. Its giant body did not affect its speed. If no one could distract the creature, none could run away from it. The Steel Armor Gang had become the last line of defense. As the members were becoming desperate and about to make suicidal attacks, they suddenly saw the murderous Golden Lion stop. Everyone was dazed. The Golden Lion raised its head, staring into the sky, and had an angry look on its face. What could possibly cause the anger of such a frightening creature? Everyone followed the Golden Lion's sight and became dumbstruck. A monster in jade armor fell from the sky. Although it was much smaller than the Golden Lion, it looked even more vicious. On the back of the armored beast stood a man with golden hair and red armor, who looked like Apollo.
Han Sen.
Many people who knew Han Sen couldn't help but yelp. As people were taken aback, the Golden Lion suddenly roared and jumped into the air, throwing itself at the Golden Rockworm King. Seeing the look in the Golden Growler's eyes, Han Sen knew that the creature had recognized himself. The lion's eyes were filled with hatred. Han Sen was sure the creature wanted to rip himself apart. Let's finish everything here and now. Han Sen gripped the cursed wolf dagger in his hand, staring at the Golden Growler. Boom! The Golden Growler clashed with the transformed Golden Rock Worm King. Although the Worm King was just about 1/10 the size of Golden Growler, it did not back off after the clash. The 8 sharp claws dug deep into the fur of the Golden Growler. Roar! The Golden Growler felt the pain and howled. Its paw hit the Golden Rockworm King, knocking the worm away, which then caused several buildings to collapse. The moment the Golden Growler laid its paw on the Rockworm King, Han Sen's heart started to thump like a running engine, almost jumping out of his chest. Qi and blood quickly rushed into Han Sen's body, making him burn with explosive energy. The cursed wolf dagger almost became one with Han Sen and went toward an eye of the Golden Growler. Previously, Han Sen could not even break the eyes of the baby Golden Growler. However, Han Sen had become much stronger. With the super beast soul cursed wolf dagger in his hand, Han Sen was not who he used to be. The dagger was stabbed into the eye of the Golden Growler hard, as if it was stabbed into rubber. Han Sen used all he got and pushed the dagger inward. Roar! As blood flowed, the Golden Growler howled, trying to hit Han Sen with its forepaw. The moment Han Sen pierced the golden eye, he had already kicked the Golden Growler's face in order to retreat. When he was in the air, the Worm King threw itself under Han Sen's feet, helping its master avoid the Golden Growler's paw. With a bleeding eye, the Golden Growler had incredible hatred in its only eye left. With a roar, it quickly hit Han Sen and the Golden Rock Worm King again at an incredible speed. Han Sen looked cold. Stepping on the Golden Rock Worm King's back, he dodged the paw and stabbed at its other eye. When the Golden Growler tried to take its paw back to hit Han Sen, the Rock Worm King had already dug its claws into the lion's paw, its tail piercing its fur, making the Golden Growler scream. Han Sen threw himself at the lion, piercing the other eye of the Golden Growler. Blood suddenly colored the golden eye red. Roar! Growling continuously, the Golden Growler quickly rushed toward a direction, knocking down countless buildings. It eventually broke out of the shelter and ran away. Watching Golden Growler leaving embarrassed, loud cheers exploded in the shelter. Many were shouting Han Sen's name. However, Han Sen had no time to respond. Standing on the back of the Golden Rock Worm King, Han Sen quickly chased after the Golden Growler. This time, he will not let the creature off the hook again. Kill it! Many people were shouting their hearts out, wishing they were able to kill Golden Growler, and even alive like Han's senator humans had never experienced such cruelty in First God's sanctuary. The blood of family and friends made them furious. Buzzing its four wings, the Golden Rock Worm King quickly went after the Golden Growler. When it was about to catch up with the lion, Han Sen deliberately slowed down a little bit as he did not want anyone to see him kill the Golden Growler. Han Sen wondered if the Golden Growler would disappear like other super creatures, which would look suspicious to other people. Han Sen was confident to kill the Golden Growler at this point. All he needed to do was to wait for the Golden Growler to run to a desolated spot, which would be the moment he made his move. Being blind, the Golden Growler could no longer tell which direction it was going. Its eyes were bleeding, but the blood was going back into its injuries. It looked like it was healing.
Bang bang.
All the rocks and trees were knocked away by the Golden Growler. The creature eventually entered Dark Swamp. Go deeper. Han Sen was pleased with the fact that the creature had entered the least populated place, creating the perfect opportunity for him to kill it. Following the Golden Growler into the Dark Swamp with his wings, Han Sen saw all the creatures in the lion's way knocked dead or stamped on. The fitness level of a super creature was much higher than any other creature. Even when it was blind already, no one could hurt it unless they had a super beast soul weapon. Watching the Golden Growler going deeper into the swamp where there was no one nearby, Han Sen no longer hesitated and ordered the Golden Rock Worm King to go at the blind Golden Growler. Its four wings buzzing, the Golden Rock Worm King strangled the Golden Growler with its barbed tail. The tail pierced the creature's neck and the blood started to flow. Meanwhile, the 8 sharp claws the Rock Worm King locked the Golden Growler's head down, stabbing inside its skull. The Golden Growler cried in despair, trying to hit the Golden Rock Worm King with its paw. However, only made some noises of metal on metal. Han Sen summoned his black feathered wings, hovering in the air and watching his pet fighting the Golden Growler. The Super Pet in Super Pet armor was almost invincible. Even the Golden Growler could not injure the Golden Rock Worm King. Instead, it was haunted by the Worm King and attacked by 8 sharp claws. The golden hair of the lion was shaved by the claws, and bloody scars crisscrossed on its head, looking miserable. Let's end it here. Seeing that the Golden Rock Worm King could not really kill the Golden Growler, Han Sen gripped the dagger and rushed toward the stomach of the Golden Growler. In Han Sen's hand, the cursed wolf dagger made a cut of 12 feet long on the stomach of Golden Growler. Golden blood jetted out like a spring, mixed with pieces of inner organs. Roar! The Golden Growler cried, waving its paws and trying to kill its enemy. However, it could no longer tell where the enemy was. As its blood left its body, the Golden Growler quickly became weak. Han Sen jumped on its head and stabbed the dagger into its brain, accelerating its death. After all, the Golden Growler had not grown as strong as its mother. It was only at the same level as the cursed wolf. Compared to the invincible large Golden Growler, it was still much lacking. If the Golden Growler had become as strong as its parent, Han Sen was afraid that the entire steel armor shelter would be crushed by the creature. At that point, Han Sen could not guarantee he would be able to stop it. Super creature Golden Growler killed. Beast soul of Golden Growler gained. Life essence available. Meat edible. Watching the dead Golden Growler, Han Sen was dazed. This time, the voice was different from before. Han Sen was happy that he was able to gain the beast soul of the Golden Growler. However, after killing several super creatures, it was the first time the body of the creature did not disappear. In addition, the voice had always told him that the meat of super creature was inedible, yet this time it said something different. If the meat was indeed edible, Han Sen wondered why the voice did not say it could bring him more Super Geno points. In conclusion, the voice was kind of weird. Han Sen watched the creature's body with his brows knitted. The Golden Growler is different from other creatures. Han Sen quickly forgot about this issue. He was overjoyed that he had gained the Super Beast Soul, Life Essence, and even the meat of the golden growler. Han Sen was surprised how lucky he was. Han Sen had thought that he had used up his luck, given how lucky he had been recently. However, he still gained the beast soul, and even gained the body of a super creature. Han Sen did not dare to hesitate much longer. He quickly dissected the body of the golden growler with the cursed wolf dagger, searching for its life essence. Han Sen almost tore its entire body up to find the golden crystal in its skull. Although the golden crystal was much smaller than that of its parent, it was still the size of a basketball. Han Sen quickly licked at the crystal. As he drank the golden liquid, he felt his entire body was on fire. Strength was instilled into his body cells, making his entire body stronger. Life essence of golden growler consumed. 1 super geno point gained. Hearing the wonderful voice in his mind, Han Sen almost laughed out loud. He licked the crystal faster. Hearing the voice telling him about his newly gained super geno points, Han Sen felt he was on top of the world. The life essence of the golden growler gave Han Sen another 8 super geno points. Han Sen now had 60 super geno points. After finishing the life essence, Han Sen felt more cheerful than ever. He glanced at the meat of the golden growler. Since the meat could be eaten, I believe it should also give me super geno points. The body of this creature is so big that I wonder when I can finish eating it. Watching the golden growler cut into pieces by him, Han Sen felt worried. Any piece in front of him was taller than himself. Han Sen wondered how he could eat it. Let me try some first. Han Sen picked a tender piece and made a thin slice. Without time to cook, Han Sen decided to taste it raw. Very soon, Han Sen found out sadly that the meat was as tough as ever. Han Sen chewed the meat and felt as if he was chewing calfskin. There was no way his teeth could tear up the meat. In the end, Han Sen decided to simply swallow the meat since the slice was quite thin. However, after he swallowed it up, nothing had happened. Even if this piece of meat did not give him any geno point, Han Sen should still be able to hear the voice telling him no geno point gained. However, after swallowing, Han Sen had heard nothing. What the heck? Han Sen felt quite upset. He hesitated and summoned Holy Angel, wondering if she would eat it. If she could not eat it, then the meat was useless. After seeing the meat of golden growler, Holy Angel was overjoyed and threw itself at the meat. Holding a piece of meat, she gobbled away. The meat Han Sen could not even chew was easily torn into pieces by Holy Angel with her teeth. All pets would be winners at eating contests. Han Sen was dumbstruck by the way Holy Angel ate. Momentarily, the little girl had already swallowed a piece of meat taller than Han. Senator Han Sen wondered where the volume went in the belly of the Holy Angel. However, the Holy Angel did not mean to stop. She quickly went to another piece of meat and started to eat. Han Sen saw the little girl started to grow as she ate the meat of the golden growler. Her hair became longer and chest fuller. Her legs became longer, and a pair of white wings started to grow on her back. Han Sen felt the little girl looked more and more like the creature she used to be. Her wings became bigger and her body more curvaceous. Jade armor started to formulate on her body as well. Holy Angel. She really had become the Holy Angel. Han Sen was dumbstruck and did not know what to say. After eating a small part of the golden growler meat, the little girl had grown into a woman. However, the change had not stopped. The Holy Angel was still bearing her face in the meat. As she ate, the figure of Holy Angel started to shift again. Her blonde hair became almost transparent, her white armor became golden, and even her eyes and halo became pure gold. The Holy Angel turned into an elegant goddess, covered in a sacred aura. After eating all the meat of the golden growler, the Holy Angel turned and walked to Han Senator. She approached Han Sen until their faces met. Watching the gorgeous yet ice-cold face of the beauty, Han Sen was wondering what she wanted to do. All of a sudden, the Holy Angel held Han Sen's face with both hands and covered his mouth with her red lips. Damn it! I am molested by a pet. Han Sen stared his eyes wide, feeling incredulous. As Han Sen was having complex feelings, he suddenly felt suction from the mouth of the Holy Angel. She sucked the piece of meat that he just swallowed out from Han Sen's stomach. Holy Angel released Han Sen and swallowed the piece of meat, which seemed to make her look more mysterious and pretty. Evolution of Holy Angel complete. Han Sen heard the voice in his mind. Checking the data of Holy Angel, Han Sen was dazed. Holy Angel, super pet, can further evolve. Han Sen could understand that the Holy Angel had evolved into a super creature after eating the meat of the golden growler. However, after she had already become a super pet, the system said she could even evolve further, which was beyond Han Sen's comprehension. Han Sen had never heard that a pet beast soul could evolve twice. In addition, a super pet must be the top being in First God's sanctuary. If the Holy Angel could evolve even further, what would she become? Watching the innocent girl standing in front of him, Han Sen did not know what to think. After finishing evolution, the Holy Angel had dismissed her transformed state and become the little girl again, looking at Han Sen with her eyes wide. Han Sen was shocked. Technically speaking, a pet could not decide its state for itself. Some intelligent pets could react automatically under emergencies, which was also quite rare and limited. Dismissing its own transformed state like the Holy Angel was simply beyond the ability of a pet. Han Sen regarded the Holy Angel with his brows knitted and took her back. Fortunately, the beast soul did not resist. This is so strange. I believe it's the golden growler. Other super creatures all disappeared after being killed, but the golden growler had edible meat. There must be some mysteries. Han Sen did not have any clues. In Steel Armor Shelter, everyone was talking about the creature and Han Senator. They had never heard about a creature attacking a shelter in First God's sanctuary. The fact that Han Sen had chased the creature away made a lot of people in Steel Armor Shelter grateful to him. Many people in Steel Armor Shelter posted on the Skynet about the issue, giving rise to quite a lot of attention. The shelters in First God's sanctuary were not built by humans, but a part of the God's sanctuary system. No creatures dared to come close to the shelter before, yet one suddenly attacked a shelter, which naturally made breaking news. Ningyu was also reading about the incident. Although there was no picture or video, Ningyu was paying a lot of attention, especially to the part about Han Sen. After a long time, Ningyu turned his device off and asked an old man who looked like a steward, "Is everyone ready?" "Yes, young master. Everyone is ready, but are you really going to do that?" The old man asked Ningyu. "We cannot touch someone from the special squad, especially someone connected to the Qins. If we want to capture him alive, we can only do it in God's sanctuary," Ningyu said casually. "But young master, you don't need to go yourself," the old man said worriedly. "That guy is not an ordinary person," Ningyu said quietly and walked to the teleport device. Ningyu slowly walked into the cold liquid of the evolution pool. Initially, he did not want to become an evolver so soon. Once he finished evolution, he must leave First God's sanctuary in a short amount of time, otherwise his body would be damaged permanently. However, Ningyu still chose to evolve at this point. He had so many doubts about Han Sen that he felt it was worthwhile for him to evolve. Although he had summoned 13 evolvers with their sacred Geno points maxed out who worked for Starry Group in different shelters, Ningyu still chose to evolve himself as well. Ningyu did not want to give Han Sen any opportunity of survival. He only trusted himself with this mission. Although Starry Group was powerful, they did not want to mess with the special squad unless they had to, especially in the case that Han Sen worked for Qin Xin. Ningyu could not do anything to Han Sen in the alliance, so he had to do it in God's sanctuary. In the evolution pool, Ningyu's body was undergoing significant changes. Other people only knew about Son of Heaven, while few people knew that Ningyu was the most talented in his generation of the Nings. Although he did not have the best health, Ningyu was the only person who had practiced the sword skills of the family successfully. Before God's sanctuary was discovered, an ancestor of the Nings was one of the few people who had mastered sword skills. Their skills were called Ke, which had been considered a famous school since ancient times. Since people had found God's sanctuary, the Ke techniques were adapted into super Geno arts and became even stronger. However, Ningyu did not think that. Although the super Geno art was strong, Ningyu thought his family never had another sword master like his grandfather Ningtie since the invention of the super Geno art. When Ningyu was a little boy and just started to learn to use sword, he abandoned the strong super Geno art and insisted on practicing the old sword techniques. When he just started, the techniques were not even close to the modern super Geno art, But Ningyu did not question his own decision. 2 years ago, Ningyu finally succeeded in practicing the old sword techniques and understood its essence. He eventually knew how ridiculous the adaptation was. Initially, Ningyu thought no one in First God's Sanctuary would be a worthy opponent for him to use the actual KE sword skills. After meeting Han Sen, Ningyu thought everything had changed. Ningyu had so many doubts about Han Senator if Han Sen had become an evolver when they first met. He had been staying in First God's Sanctuary for too long, which should have already caused his body harm. No one would be so dumb. If he had not become an evolver, he did already have the strength beyond an unevolved person. Ningyu could only think of one possibility, which was that Han Sen had already acquired super genes. Ningyu even suspected that the dagger of Han Sen was a beast soul beyond sacred blood beast soul. Otherwise, how could it be so sharp? However, Ningyu did not dare to tell anyone about it. Ningyu was not the only person who was pursuing super genes, and the Nings was not the only family who knew about it. Ningyu did not want anyone to know about Han Sen, otherwise Ningyu himself would have even less chance. Therefore, Ningyu could only depend on himself even at the cost of leaving First God's Sanctuary early. He had to figure out Han Sen's secret. Ningyu did not want any accident. Therefore, he had used all his connections to gather the 13 advanced fighters who were about to max out on their super Geno points, help them fill their Geno point count up, and make them evolve. Ningyu had been preparing all this, which was why he did not make a move on Han Senator. What he was waiting for was this opportunity. After reading about the news that Han Sen had beaten the Golden Lion, Ningyu was even more certain that Han Sen had acquired the power beyond sacred genes. Meanwhile, Han Sen was drooling before the Golden Growler in the 7th warehouse. The beast soul of the Golden Growler was a mount. The super mount had not only incredible speed, but also adjustable size. At Han Sen's command, the Golden Growler could be as large as a small hill. Its smallest was still the size of an elephant. In addition, the Golden Growler had a tough body and an incredible ability to bear weight, which was outstanding for a mount. Han Sen wondered if the Golden Growler had other abilities, which he was not sure of so far. Riding the Golden Growler in its smallest form in the warehouse, Han Sen felt fantastic. The ride was so comfortable, like he was in an advanced private aircraft, even when the mount was running at its full speed. This is the ride that gets me, girls.
Han Sen felt excited.
Maybe he could take Ji Yanran for a ride on the Golden Growler sometime, and maybe even do something naughty with her. What would the term be if we do it on the lion's back?
Han Sen wondered.
After playing around for a while, Han Sen took the Golden Growler back and started to look for information on the Skynet using his comlink. After finding what he needed, Han Sen opened the scroll he took from the cave, scanned it with his comlink, and machine translated the characters into modern language using the device. Indeed, the characters were in an ancient language, which were easily translated into the modern language. Han Sen carefully checked its content. In the beginning, Han Sen felt quite relaxed, as he was just trying to determine where the guy was from. After a while, however, Han Sen's face became grim. Shortly, Han Sen was shocked. In the end, he couldn't even close his mouth. Han Sen could not believe what was written on the scroll was true. This must be a prank. How come this is possible? After Han Sen read the content, he was appalled. However, thinking about how strange the dead body looked, maybe it was true. If it is true, then the entire alliance would be shocked. It is completely against what we know so far. Han Sen could not calm himself down reading the translated text. According to the translated text, the owner of the scroll, aka the dead man, was from ancient times when cold steel was the only weapon material. They did not even have electricity, let alone teleport devices. A man from that time could teleport into God's sanctuary using just their body, which was hard to believe. The latter part of the scroll was a statement of the writer. According to him, he was a Taoist who styled himself as Dongxian. He was the leader of an organization called Xian Min. Having committed himself to Taoism, he eventually reached the state where he could break through the vacuum. However, after breaking through the vacuum, Dongxian found that he did not reach heaven. Or, the heaven he reached was different from his imagination. He appeared in a different world, where everything was beyond his comprehension. Unfortunately, although Dongxian was successful in breaking through the vacuum, His body was severely injured by the shift. Shortly after he reached this world, he wrote down the scroll and died. Han Sen felt the story absurd. Using one's own body to break through the vacuum so that one could teleport into God's sanctuary must require incredible strength. Even demigods in the contemporary time could not achieve that. Han Sen felt like it was just a fairy tale. The former part of the scroll was a Taoist martial art called Dongxian Sutra. According to Dongxian himself, it was his life's work, an invention based on a Taoist martial art. It was with Dongxian Sutra that Dongxian had achieved the state of breaking through the vacuum and landed in God's sanctuary. When he traveled through the vacuum, almost everything Dongxian was wearing got destroyed, including a treasure piece he was wearing called the feathered cloak. Only Dongxian Sutra made of void silk was kept intact. I wonder if it is true. If Dongxian was telling the truth, then this Dongxian Sutra should be even better than demigod hypergeno arts. Han Sen read Dongxian Sutra with suspicion. It seemed that Dongxian Sutra was too difficult for the machine to translate. Han Sen could not understand the translated text and felt confused. For generic content, the machine translation was good enough. However, for a sutra, the machine translation was either wrong or messy. It seems that I should not try to translate Dongxian Sutra using a machine. I have to learn the ancient language myself. Han Sen translated the text word by word, but found that many characters had multiple meanings, and he had no way to determine what they actually meant. Han Sen found that even if he knew what each character meant, he could not understand the article. Han Sen eventually understood why the machine had failed at the task. For an ancient language like this, it was essential for the reader to have the knowledge in a certain area before reading. Although Han Sen could guess the meaning here and there, he did not dare to try practicing what he guessed. Han Sen had to set Dongxian Sutra aside and started to study the materials of the ancient language department of Blackhawk. It took time for Han Sen to learn the ancient language, and it could not be rushed. After resting for 2 days, Han Sen started to plan to transfer the beast souls of Dollar back to his own identity. Su Xiaoqiao, who had now become the team lead of Bullseye, was hunting a mutant creature with a group of people. Suddenly, someone dashed from a forest in front of him and cut the mutant creature in half. Damn it! Who gives you the nerve to snatch my creature? Are you tired of living this life?
Su Xiaoqiao brisel.
However, when seeing who it was, he quickly stopped and stared his eyes wide. Dollar, you did not evolve? Very soon. So, I want to sell all my beast souls and need your help, Han Sen said, and transferred all his beast souls and gear to Su Xiaoqiao. Hearing the voice telling him about Sacred Blood Beast Soul after Sacred Blood Beast Soul, Su Xiaoqiao was completely dumbstruck. When Han Sen was about to leave, Su Xiaoqiao came to himself and exclaimed, Dollar, you're not afraid that I will keep the beast souls for myself? No, I'm not, said Han Sen casually without turning back. Su Xiaoqiao quickly asked, You haven't given me a price yet. And where should I find you after they're sold? Do an auction. I only want S-Class licenses of the Evolver level. I will go find you, Han Sen said and disappeared in the mountains. Of course, he was not afraid that Su Xiaoqiao would keep the beast souls. After all, Su Xiaoqiao was working for Steel Armor Gang, and Han Sen knew everything about him. The beast souls are so good. Well, there is even a sacred blood pet. Although he took off his armor, he was still covering his face and I cannot tell what he looks like. What a pity. Su Xiaoqiao licked his lips and lamented. Boss, is that guy really Dollar? Why would he ask you to do the auction for him? What is your relationship? What beast souls did he give you? Su Xiaoqiao had not completely recovered from the shock, so there was no way he could answer that. Very soon, the news got out that Dollar asked Su Xiaoqiao to do an auction of his beast souls in Steel Armor Shelter. Many people were shocked. No one knew that Dollar was still in First God's Sanctuary, and no one could foresee that Dollar's beast souls would be for sale. Many people investigated Su Xiaoqiao and determined that he could not be Dollar. At this point, Ningyu had also come to Steel Armor Shelter to find Han Senator. When hearing the news, he also looked into the background of Su Xiaoqiao and reached the same conclusion as others. Young Master, Su Xiaoqiao is going to do the auction tomorrow. Should we attend the auction? Lu Lin asked. The Sacred Blood Beast Souls of Dollar were quite famous and coveted by many. Ningyu was deep in his thoughts. He murmured, Dollar.
Han Sen.
These two. Go get me the information you gathered on both of them. Young master, you're saying that Han Sen is dollar? Lu Lin was dazed. We will know the answer to that question very soon. Go prepare for the auction, Ningyu said quietly. Every once in a while, Steel Armor Gang would organize an auction. It was rather easy for Su Xiaoqiao to conduct another one with the trained personnel. On the day of the auction, almost everyone with some status in Steel Armor Shelter came. Ningyu and Lu Lin were covering their faces, observing in the crowd. Ningyu's gaze lingered on Han Senator. It seemed that he was trying to tell something from Han Sen's look. The 4 items that Han Sen gave Su Xiaoqiao were Sacred Blood Black Beetle Armor, Bloody Slayer, Meowth, and Spinning Spear. Too many people knew that Han Sen had made the last shot at the Purple Feathered Dragon and claimed to not have gained the Beast Soul, which was why Han Sen did not give the pair of wings to Su Xiaoqiao. Before the auction started, Han Sen felt he was being watched. He resisted the temptation to look back. When Qing came over to say hi, Han Sen stood up and glanced casually to the back. Ningyu is also here? Han Sen greeted Qing as if nothing had happened, but felt slightly surprised. Although Ningyu was covered in beast soul armor and his face could not be seen, Han Sen had a deep impression of him and still recognized him. He recognized me, Ningyu said quietly. Really? Lu Lin looked to Han Sen, who was talking to Qing incredulously. Han Sen only glanced at them and did not even look twice. Since Ningyu was dressed like this, Lu Lin did not believe that Han Sen could recognize Ningyu. In addition, Han Sen did not look like he had seen Ningyu given how calm he was. Ningyu smiled and did not say anything. However, he took back the beast soul armor and revealed his face. Ningyu is probably here to kill me, Han Sen thought after sitting down. However, he did not know what Ningyu was about to do. It was Steel Armor Shelter and Han Sen was at home. Would Ningyu harm him in public? After the auction started, Han Sen had not been able to close his mouth. His initial plan was to purchase all the beast souls himself. It was his money anyway. Su Xiaoqiao would get a small cut was all. He did not expect the prices would go so high though. Even the Black Beetle armor, which was of the lowest value, was already worth 5 S-Class licenses of the Evolver level and more. Qing, are you crazy? Although the Sacred Blood armor is precious, I'm sure it's not so precious. When Qing bid 8 S-Class licenses of the Evolver level, Han Sen thought he was out of his mind. Haha, brother, it is more than just Sacred Blood armor. This is Dollar's signature, and only his name would be worth this much. Many people around Qing seemed to agree with him, especially Hai Yun, who was standing S-Class licenses like water. When he bid 10 licenses, everyone was silent. Han Sen was dazed and thought, 10 S-Class licenses of the Evolver level? It must be billions of dollars, while the Sacred Blood armor would probably only be worth 200 to 300 million. Han Sen wanted to purchase his own beast souls back initially, but he was having second thoughts. S-Class licenses were rare items that could hardly be purchased. Even if he had no use of them, he could always trade them for beast souls in Second God's Sanctuary. 10 licenses were a price that Han Sen could not say no to. Having given up the idea of purchasing the Black Beetle armor, Han Sen decided to let Hai Yun keep it. The bidding for the Bloody Slayer was even more heated. Hai Yun had raised the price to 15 licenses without even blinking. Han Sen felt what had happened was beyond his understanding. He even doubted whether the S-Class licenses had been depreciating. Hai Yun, are these beast souls really worth it?
Han Sen asked Hai Yun.
These are dollars, so they're different. Hai Yun was overjoyed that he won the auction of the Bloody Slayer. Hai Yun, you already have 2. Do not try to steal the last one from us, said Qing half seriously. Whoever gives the higher price would win it. If you pay more, you can have it, Hai Yun said. During the auction of Meowth, Han Sen felt torn. Although Meowth was no longer that useful to Han Sen, it was his pet for the longest time. Han Sen did not want to let Meowth go. Very soon, Meowth's price was raised to 15 licenses by Hai Yun. Everyone became silent. Few people had that many S-Class licenses, which could not even be bought with money. Lin Beifeng was also quite rich, but he could not even come up with 5 S-Class licenses. For universal S-Class licenses, Han Sen gritted his teeth and set a price. He resisted the temptation of 15 S-Class licenses and would like to get Meowth back at all costs. Universal S-Class licenses? Han Sen, you would pay this much? Are you also a fan? Both Yuan and Qing were shocked. Not really a fan. I am just into pets, Han Sen smiled and said. 20 S-Class licenses, which should have a higher value. Ha Yun still would not give up. That is hard to say.
Su xiao kiao gesetatid.
Universal licenses win. All of a sudden, a voice came from the gate of the venue. Everyone turned and saw someone wearing a mask. Dollar. Su Xiaoqiao was surprised to see the person. The person looked exactly like Dollar when he was giving Su Xiaoqiao the beast souls. Su Xiaoqiao naturally recognized him. Dollar left after saying that. After all, it was just a doppelganger created by Han Sen using Beetle Knight. The shorter it appeared in front of people, the better. Should we follow him? Lu Lin looked to Ningyu. Ningyu shook his head and said, no need. Our target is Han Sr. Han Sen saw someone following the Beetle Knight, but paid no mind to it. The Beetle Knight was a sacred blood beast soul and was controlled by Han Sen, so it was not difficult to get rid of the followers.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Ha-Yun.
Dollar had said himself that he preferred universal licenses. Su Xiaoqiao looked around and said, for universal licenses from Han Sen, going once. Eventually, Han Sen won the auction of Meowth and had his beloved back. Even the Sacred Blood Gear Spinning Spear was bought by Ha Yun with 2 Sacred Blood licenses. Han Sen did not expect this guy to be such a die-hard fan of Dollar. Han Sen had earned 27 S-Class licenses of the Evolver level, and all he paid was 2 Sacred Blood Beast Souls and 1 Sacred Blood Gear. The price was simply unimaginable. If I was not afraid of his family, I would never have let Ha Yun taken the 2 Beast Souls of Dollar. I should have bought at least 1. Qing couldn't stop complaining after the auction was concluded.
Han Sen felt chockad.
It turned out the price was not high enough in the rich kids' eyes. They gave up only because they did not want to cross Ha Yun. Han Sen knew that the 2 Beast Souls were expensive because of the fame of Dollar instead of their real worth. Han Sen, you should have purchased the armor or the shape-shifting Beast Soul. Although the pet was strong, the other 2 items were the signatures of Dollar. Qing lamented. Brother, would you like to sell the pet? Ha Yun still did not want to let it go. He was obviously a perfectionist who had to have the whole set. Ha Yun, I am so sorry. I need that pet and do not plan to sell it for the moment, said Han Sen. If you would like to sell it in the future, you have to come to me first. I am easy on the price, Ha Yun said and left with regret. When Han Sen, Qing, and Yuan just walked out of the venue, a dozen people laid siege to them. Are you looking for trouble? Qing frowned and exclaimed. Ningyu walked out and said calmly, Qing, Yuan, this has nothing to do with you. It is personal between Han Sen and me. Feel free to leave, and I will apologize to you later. Ningyu, what did Han Sen do? Qing and Yuan both frowned. Han Sen snatched our creature, Ningyu said quietly. It is just a creature. Name the price and I will pay for him, Qing said immediately. It is not about money, but about getting things straight. I hope you can understand, Ningyu said with no emotions. Qing and Yuan felt they were in an awkward position and both looked to Han Sen. Han Sen, what had happened? Su Xiaoqiao rushed out with his men from Steel Armor Gang. The Special Squad and the Steel Armor Gang were closely connected and could be considered a family. Seeing Han Sen in a siege, the gang members came to his rescue. Are we bullying them with number? Count me in. Look at where you are. How dare you try to cross Han Sen here? You must be blind. This is Steel Armor Shelter, and you should go back to where you are. Very soon, the gang members had besieged Ning Yu's men. Thank you so much. I will always remember how good you are to me. If you ever need me in the future, I'll be there. However, this matter is between Ning Yu and me, and I will take care of it myself. Han Sen quickly stopped the Steel Armor Gang. Although others cannot tell, Han Sen had known evolvers very well, and could tell that the men Ning Yu had brought were all evolvers with their sacred Geno points maxed out. If they were really in a fight, although there were more people in the gang would still suffer a greater loss. Qing, Yuan, let me handle this myself, Han Sen said to his 2 friends. If you need anything, just say the word. I will never see you being bullied, Qing raised his voice and said, Han Sen, what do you say? Ningyu paid Qing no mind and asked Han Sen with a smile. 13 evolvers with sacred Geno points maxed out plus himself. He was determined to capture Han Sen, no matter who was present. He was constrained by rules and laws in the Alliance, but in God's sanctuary, no one could do anything as long as he did not kill Han Sen in public. In addition, Ningyu did not plan to kill Han Sen anyway. He had so many doubts about Han Sen that he had to figure out. Let's find another place to have a talk, said Han Sen calmly. So brave, Ningyu said and commanded the evolvers to force Han Sen out of steel armor shelter. The steel armor gang, Qing, and Yuan were trying to follow them. However, Han Sen asked him to go back. On one hand, Han Sen did not want them to be injured. On the other hand, Han Sen had his own plan. When they had reached a desolated spot in the mountains, Han Sen stopped walking. The group of people were still surrounding him, not giving him any chance to escape. Han Sen, what do you plan to do?
Ningyu looked at Han Sen.
I'll let you capture me. What do you think of this plan?
Han Sen sighed calmly.
Everyone was dazed. Even Ningyu was surprised. After a while, he looked at Han Sen and asked, Are you sure? So many evolvers with sacred Geno points maxed out. I don't think anyone else could gather so many talents in the first God's sanctuary. I don't think I could escape alive. Rather than taking some beating, I would surrender myself. Han Sen reached out his hand, looking like he had given up. Ningyu was still suspicious and ordered his men to tie Han Sen up. Han Sen did not resist and let the guys lock him down with special locks. You're not afraid that I'll kill you? Ningyu looked at Han Sen with his brows knitted. I know you will not kill me, at least not before you have your answers, Han Sen said while thinking. You really think you could kill me if you lock me down? If I am not trying to fish information from you, I would have summoned my 2 super pets to teach you a lesson. You still had an opportunity to run away while you were in steel armor shelter, Ningyu said. I am a member of the special squad after all. My mission is to protect others, not to let others sacrifice themselves for me. Even if I could run away, I would be too ashamed to live.
Han Sen sighed calmly.
Give me your dagger, and I will let you walk free. Ningyu pondered and said, If it was the first time, I might consider your words. However, I am certain that if I do not give you my dagger, I will not necessarily die. If I gave you my dagger, I will die for sure, Han Sen said with a smile.
Bang!
Lu Lin threw a hard punch at Han Sen's face, knocking him down on the ground. Blood started to flow from Han Sen's mouth. I will show you what it's like to pray for your death. Lu Lin sounded cruel. He took out a dagger and slashed it at Han Sen. Lu Lin did not push the dagger into Han Sen's vital organs, but where it hurt most. He was also doing it as slow as possible and dragging the blade back and forth. Han Sen's face became pale immediately, covered in cold sweat. However, he managed not to make a sound. I don't believe you are made of iron. Lu Lin took a black leather bag at his waist and opened it. There were many odd-looking utensils. Lu Lin picked one and tried to use it on Han Sen. That is enough. Take him to number 107. Ningyu stopped Lu Lin, gazed at Han Sen, and ordered his men,